Good afternoon and welcome to the latest in our series of live careers webinars brought to you by the Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal. The Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal exists to provide students from Hertfordshire schools with the opportunity to find out about lots of different career options that are available to them. These webinars take place once a week, and the aim of these webinars is to provide you with the opportunity to hear directly from people who do a job that quite possibly you're very interested in finding out a little bit more about. And today's session is going to be around careers in policing. So we have a fantastic panel with you today. It looks like there's only two people on the panel, but actually there is a hidden third person on there. I'll explain why that is in a moment. So just a bit of housekeeping to start with. Firstly, hopefully you can see and hear, well, at least three of us, so there's one of us that you won't be able to see, but you will be able to hear. Just to reassure you, we can't see or hear any of you in the audience at the moment, but you will have the opportunity to interact with us and to put some questions to the panelists as we go through this webinar, which usually will last about an hour, so it'll probably take us through till about 4:30. So if you think of any questions that you want to ask, then what you do on your dashboard, there is a questions tab. If you click that open, you'll see that there's a text box, and then within the text box, you can type your question in. That will only be visible to me, and then I will send it through to either of the panelists who I think will be best positioned to try and answer that for you. This session is being recorded today, so if you can't stay with us all the way through until the end of it, it will be available to watch back via the HOT platform, which is also on YouTube at some point tomorrow. I'll share that link with you, and you can also go back and look at any of the other webinars that we've recorded across other careers areas as we go on. So do keep your questions in. It's really important that if there's any questions or things that you want to know more about, you have the opportunity. But hopefully throughout today, we're going to inform you about what working for Hertfordshire Police is actually like, what the realities of it are, the different sorts of roles and opportunities, how you get into it, and the sorts of things that they will be looking for people, particularly those of you leaving school and college looking for your first job. So let me give you some introductions first of all. So we're joined on the panel today by Andy Pardy. We are joined by Andreea-Diaconu, and we're also joined by David Scarratz, who is, you can't see him at the moment, and the reason for that is that he works in a very special branch of the police which involves covert operations. So we can't have his face out there in the public ether, but he will introduce himself and he will be able to talk a little bit about his role. So firstly, if I could ask each of you in turn, perhaps starting with Andy, just to talk a little bit about what you do at the moment, how you got into policing, and what you find most enjoyable about it.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Andy. I'm a sergeant at the moment. I'm actually on the recruitment team. So, you know, you guys might be speaking to me when you come and join us in the not too distant future. I've been in the job 18.5 years, and I spent 9 years of that on safe and neighbourhoods policing. So that's like local community problem solving. And I looked after the town centre, so dealing with shoplifters, thefts and stuff along those lines. And then I was a sergeant on intervention and response for quite some time. So that's the blue light and response to all emergencies until June last year, where I joined the recruitment team. I'm also on the side, because you can have additional jobs on the side as the main role. I'm also a CBRN response officer. So if you see people in the hazmat suits going at things like the Novichok attacks and stuff like that, that's the sort of thing that I can get called out to do. And I'm also riot police medic, and I was a medic on the front lines during the London riots as well.
Okay, thanks very much, Andy. We'll have more of an opportunity to explore some of those things as we go through the webinar. So, Andreea, tell us a little bit about where you are in your journey.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andreea. I'm a police student officer. I'm 38 years old, so not exactly at the start of my career like most of you. For 14 years, I've been teaching geography and English as a second language. And since relocating to the UK, I gave it a thought and I changed my career into policing. I have absolutely no policing background until now. I went through the recruitment process. I started in August and I finished roughly in December. I found it really long, but also very enjoyable and exciting. I would recommend everyone to go through it. And right now I am about 4 weeks into my training. It's a lot of information to take in, but to be honest with you, I can't wait to actually start my job.
I'm sure. And then, David, could you tell us a little bit about your journey to date?
Yeah, afternoon everyone. I've been a police officer now for about 15 or 16 years. I'm currently a detective inspector on the Eastern Region Special Operations Unit, which is a regional organised crime team. I'm a surveillance officer, a detective, also an armed officer as well, specialist driver, and previously I've worked in various different departments such as response, tactical team, where I was also a right police officer like Andy, also a medic, and then I also worked in the Herts covert unit as well. But my background is predominantly detective work, covert operations, and investigations into organised crime.
Thank you very much. A really good introduction from all three of our panelists today. Again, if you think of any questions you want to ask them, please do drop them into the questions tab. So look, moving on to section 2 here of our webinar. So what does a day or a week in the life of a police officer actually look like? So Andy, if I could ask you to kick us off with that one.
Do you know, I've got a great story about what a week in the life of a police officer looks like. When I was only in the job for just over a year, so I was still a student officer, like Andreea. And I had a set of, so I was shift rotate and I was doing 3 days in a row. I did a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. And this gives you some idea of how varied policing can be. On the Monday, the Queen came to visit St Albans Cathedral. So we were able to be the greeting team for her. We marked the route that she walked. And afterwards, she came out and thanked us all individually, which was really nice. We got to meet the Queen. The next day, I went up to an Air Force base to learn all about explosives, because it was during the height of the terrorist concerns. And basically, there was a training village up there for the Army bomb disposal teams. And we did some operations there on how to deal with explosives, and then spent the second half of the day blowing stuff up, which was really good fun. And on the third day, I was in a pond around midnight with waders on up to my waist in water, looking for a rare breed of newt, because someone had reported that there was a great crested newt to prevent buildings being built there. And in the police, you also have a rural police team that look after sort of wildlife crimes and heritage crimes. So that was an extreme example of what a week can look like. But the best and worst thing about policing is that you don't know what you're going to get next. So, you know, 1 minute you could be dealing with a simple theft from a shop, and the next minute you could be dealing with a cow in the motorway. And, you know, but it's also, you know, it can have its side effects of that. You know, you could have had a fairly uneventful day, and then 5 minutes before you're due to go home, there could be a 12-car pile-up on the motorway. And those are all real things that I've dealt with and real examples. So it's probably the most varied job you could possibly want.
Yeah, so the old cliche that no 2 days are the same.
Absolutely, I get bored easily. That's why I'm in this job.
Yeah. David, from your current role that you're in, I'm sure you'll echo that no 2 days are exactly the same, but what does a day look like for you at the moment? How sort of reactive are you, or how proactive are you in your current role?
It's very varied. It depends. Well, we do surveillance, so it depends on the person we're following. If they get up early in the morning, we get up early and follow them around all day. If they're up in the afternoon and going out in the evening, we're out late following them. So it all depends on what operation we're on. And I suppose looking back on my career, similar to Andy, it's really hard to answer this question because it is so different and varied. And I think that's one of the appeals of the job for me, and why I still love it, because every day is different. And, you know, even the most mundane of departments, every day is different, challenging, exciting. But at the moment, yeah, who knows? I make plans, and by next week it's all changed.
Yeah. Okay. Andreea, from your perspective, you'll be going in once your training has completed. What do you expect your first day or your first week to actually look like?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm very jealous of Andy because I decided to join the police on the time of the pandemic. So there's no actual, practical thing on it. It's just, learning about the laws every day and maybe just a few practical things in-house. But yeah, I expect, 2 days to be the same. I expect to have, I don't know, theft one day and then a burglary another and then a robbery another. So you never get bored. I like the fact that it's not going to be 95 and there are going to be shifts. So, you have a bit of time to move around and space. Yeah, I like that about the job, about my future job, actually.
Yeah, that seems to be quite a key point here, that the variety of the different things that you're doing is very much going to be one of the more enjoyable aspects of the role. Andy, when does somebody get to choose which particular strand of policing that they're going to? So both you and David have described a real variety of different roles that you've done within there. But how does it work from when you start your training to actually finding that specialism?
Okay, so it's changed recently. It used to be a case where you used to have your standard 2 years where you did your probation period, where you were a police officer with a tutor and you go out and do day-to-day policing, and you had to do the 2 years. The way it's changed is if you want to be a detective now, if you want to go to the detective side of things, you can actually tick the box at the point of application. Because of the 2 new routes into policing, one where you have a degree and one where you have an apprenticeship. If you tick the detective box, then the last year of your training in those 2 years is specifically steered towards making you a detective at the end of those 2 years. So instead of having to wait 2 years to then become a detective, you can actually train to become that detective in your first 2 years and be operational as a detective from the moment that you're out of your training. With most specialisms, the other great thing about policing is, even if you don't want to go up promotions, you can go sideways and move to different departments. So, if there's a vacancy comes up for something like, say, for example, the cybercrime unit, I could apply for that now. I could say, I'm interested in that job, and I want to go from recruitment, I want to go to cybercrime. And there is an applications process internally where, you will compete with other police officers applying for it. But that means in a week's time, I could be doing a completely different job. And the specialisms like the CBRN and the riot police training, because that's not something that happens every day. That's something after your 2 years, you can pick up that training at any period during your career. As soon as you're out of your 2 years, if you decide that you want to become riot trained or become a medic riot police officer, for example, you can apply for that immediately after those 2 years and take on that specialism. But I must say, as soon as you're out in your first 2 years, there's an awful lot to take in. So, you may want to wait a little while. But in reality, after that 2 years, you can really, explore anything in policing. Some of them will take longer. So a lot of people like the idea of firearms, for example. That's got a very stringent sort of application process. You have to go through an awful lot of processes to get there, understandably, because of the nature of the role. But there's nothing stopping you from applying for that as soon as you're out of your probation.
Okay, and I'm sure there'll be some more questions on particular specialisms that people might want to go on to. David, you spoke about the variety being really enjoyable to you, but what are the other aspects of the role, thinking right back to your early days, that you found most enjoyable?
I think it's the opportunities that are available to you. You can specialise in so many different things. There's so many different training courses you can do. I think the actual job itself, I've worked in numerous different departments now, and each different role is interesting, challenging, rewarding. It's just a really rewarding career, and there is all the exciting bits where you're running after sort of suspects and whatnot, but then there's the other really important bits such as helping victims and dealing with people that have had road traffic accidents, and there is so many different bits. It's almost difficult to talk about it all in an hour, but it's just so varied. It really is, and there is so many different options within the police. And I think the police as I said, I've been in 15 years. I think the police is come along a long way since I first joined. So when I first joined, you had to do your 2 years, and you almost had to earn your right to move to another department. Now it's all been turned on its head, and if you want to be a detective, you can come in straight as a detective. Well, that was unheard of when I first joined. So I think the opportunities for training and specialising, it's just there for the taking.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Andreea, what are the parts of the role that you are most looking forward to?
Well, obviously, when you join the police, all you think about, I want to catch the criminals, right? So, you know, just sticking to one thing at the beginning, I don't know what I can tell you. When I joined, I was really keen on human trafficking. It's a subject I'm passionate about. But probably in a couple of months' time, I'm going to change my mind for sure. So there are so many opportunities and possibilities. I can't tell you right after a month of training, but yeah, surely I'll change my mind a couple of times
I'm
till the end of the 2 years.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Andreea, talking about the different specialisms or areas that can go into, is there a specialism that you're already got in your mind that might be something you want to go and explore?
Yeah, maybe human trafficking, like I mentioned.
Yeah, okay. So look, I mean, flip question from the enjoyable aspects. Andy, what are the most challenging aspects of the role that perhaps people don't realise when they're applying are really part and parcel of the role?
Yeah, it's quite weird, isn't it? I'm a recruitment sergeant, but I think it's just as important to say the bad sides as well as the good sides. When I joined, I was quite lucky. I had one police officer, a friend of mine, who was saying, "Oh, it's really great. You know, the jobs you do are brilliant." And I had another one saying, "Your free time will be affected. So, you know, you will be working shifts. They are demanding. And very often you'll find that you're working overtime. You will find that that happens. You know, you can't just drop everything at 4 o'clock and go home. You know, there'll be something you have to finish. And, you know, the longest shift I've done in one go is 18 hours. You know, so it does happen. And it will affect your social life. And although there is an immense amount of support in the police, we're very, very supportive and aware of the potential for people to suffer from depression, anxiety, PTSD, and stuff like that. Some of the stuff we deal with. We have some great jobs, you know, you can arrest rapists, murderers, paedophiles, and stuff like that. But we also have to deal with people at their worst. We have to deal with the victims. We have to deal with the scenes of murders. You know, we have to deal with the dark side. So you do end up carrying some of it with you. But Hertfordshire Constabulary is amazing at supporting its officers. I have PTSD, I have depression and anxiety that's related to it. But I'm still able to function and work in the police service because I have a lot of support around me, counselling, therapy, peer support and stuff along those lines. So it's something you need to be aware of. You know, I'm not mentally fragile or anything like that. I consider myself to be quite capable, but it affects the best of us. So that's something you need to be aware of when you join.
This is perhaps a deeper question than I was anticipating asking, but David, following on from what Andy said there, does working on the front line as a police officer, does it change your outlook on life?
Yeah, I think undoubtedly it does. You know, you get exposed to a lot of things, and you know, you meet some of the worst people in society at their worst moments, or some of the most vulnerable people at their most vulnerable moments. So it undoubtedly does change you. I think it changed me for the better, though. It made me a lot more of a confident person, a lot more resilient. But I suppose going back to your other point, you have to go into this job with your eyes open and realise what you're signing up for. And you are a police officer 24/7, and you have to sign up to a set of standards, and you know, you have to have integrity, and that goes on duty and off duty. And you have to really think about what you do, the people you associate with, and there are implications for your private life as well as your working life. But you know, I'm pretty sure most people listening all have good friends and good families, and you know, you wouldn't be joining the police if you didn't. But there is definitely challenges, and as has also been mentioned, some of the incidents or investigations you might get involved with, you know, they're tough. you might see some pretty horrific things whilst on duty, have to deal with horrific things, you know. I have, I'm sure Andy has as well, and you do remember them, but there are support networks in place to help you get through it, and your colleagues as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure there must be a really strong fraternity about you as police officers, that you've got these experiences in common, haven't you? And you can share some of those, and there's the platform really to deal with some of those emotions.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Some of my best friend is was a PC that I used to work with in Boreham Wood 15 years ago, and I only worked with him for about a year, but he's still my best mate now because of the relationship we formed whilst working together.
Yeah, good. Okay, right. Just going to move the conversation on a little bit to the actual process in becoming a police officer. So, Andy, if I hand over to you, and perhaps you can then bring Andreea in to discuss her own experiences of it. What is the process? So, if someone's leaving school, well, I mean, let's start from the beginning. What age do you have to be to apply and to join Hertfordshire Police? And just talk us through that process from application through to actually getting out into the streets.
Right, okay, so you can actually apply from the age of 17 to be in the police, but you must be 18 by the time that you're in the process. So if you know that your birthday's coming up, you can apply ahead of the time. So 17. Most of our applicants are 18 or older, but you can apply beforehand. So with subjects that you need at school or college, so A-levels and that, you just need basic maths and basic English. And they will test your knowledge of both of those in the recruitment process. But it's literally at that level. You don't need to be, fantastic at either of those at all. And there's a good question about whether you need to go to university. Another good reason to choose policing as a career now is that if you choose policing, most of you, if you choose a different career, you're going to go to university, you're going to study, and you're going to come out at the end of it with loads of student debt and then start looking for work to pay off that debt. If you join the police service, you earn a degree which is paid for by the police and you get paid wages. So by the end of it, you've got your degree, no debt, and you've already been earning. It's fantastic. The two main routes that Hertfordshire Constabulary do now is one for people who already have a degree and one for people who don't. So the one for people that don't is an apprenticeship that lasts for 3 years. And it's shared between you're actually out on patrol with a tutor officer. There's also a lot of classroom-based stuff, which I'm sure Andreea will be able to confirm. And then there's some university-based work as well, where you're building up that portfolio. The degree holder one is 2 years, and it's almost like a conversion course if you've got it. So like you bring in your degree, and it's UCAS points equivalent, and you do 2 years training again on the front line, classroom-based and university work. So yeah, those are the two main things at the moment. But like I said, at the end of it, you end up with a degree that's transferable outside of policing as well. It's not just usable inside policing, it's a degree in its own right. So it's a transferable degree you can take with you with no student debt, already earning a good wage and a pension.
Yeah, very good. Andreea, talk us through the actual application process. Was there lots of forms to fill in online? Did you have to go through the tests? How did it work?
Yeah, so obviously I had no previous background in policing, university or college or public service whatsoever. So I just tried to join based on my experience as a teacher and my life experience. So the process itself, for me, it lasted roughly 6 months, but it could be less, it could be more, it depends. I had to fill in an application on the website, on the HART's website. It took me quite a while. So if you want to do it right, you should dwell on it, like spend some time, do some research. There are some questions in there, very personal, about your experience and about your qualities. Maybe I would suggest future applicants to read the Code of Ethics and to see what the police force is looking for in a potential police officer. So yeah, the application itself lasts me 1 week, to be honest with you. It lasted other people maybe just a couple of hours, but I just wanted to do it right and make sure of my success. So from what I understood, not everyone passes the application. So that would be stage 1 of the process. Once I passed the application, there were a couple of stages which implied situational judgment test, which was like an option test with you just had to use your common sense. For example, if you see 2 people fighting outside, what do you do? Obviously, you intervene, something like that. There was an interview which I found more challenging because, to be honest, I don't. It's not one of my qualities to speak on and on for 5, 10, 20 minutes. So it was 4 questions, again, about your personal qualities and principles and how you would behave in certain situations. And then there was a written test where I had to respond to a request and do an action plan on a certain situation, again hypothetical, how I would sort it out, use my creativity, and so on and so forth. And then the last one, which was really a surprise because I had no idea what to do, but probably since I was successful, I did something right, was a briefing exercise. Again, you got bits of information at every stage and you had to change your plan over and over again. That one I found the most difficult. Once we passed all of these 4 stages, there was a formal interview with 2 members of staff of the police. And yeah, that was more formal, informal. They were very nice, to be honest. There were just regular questions about what do you expect to be a police officer on a day-to-day basis. How do your family feel about you becoming a police officer? What do your friends feel like? And something like that. And then there was the fitness test, which unfortunately, I'm sorry I didn't start it last year to prepare for that. It consists of the bleep test. If you look for it online, you will definitely understand what it means. I hardly passed that, to be honest with you. I'm not a runner. I didn't go to the gym. However, becoming a police officer has changed my lifestyle from this point of view. And I'm running every day. I've got to half an hour in one run, which is great for me. So yeah, that was kind of difficult for me to pass. In my group, there were 2 people who failed, so it's not as easy. And that was the end of it. So this whole process lasted, 6 to 4 months. It depends. And I started in January.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking us through that. So I guess a number of questions come off it, which perhaps I'll direct to Andy. Do you know what are the sort of numbers in terms of the number of application forms that come in? How many of those are likely to end up in interviews and to get through to that stage where they're going for the interviews and for the assessments?
Okay, so it is a difficult process to get through, and it's made difficult on purpose because obviously we need people that have got the right skills to come through. So I would say probably about 20% of applicants get through to the final stage. And that's probably being a bit generous as well. That's not to say that we're very strict on who we write away, but as Andrea was, sort of saying, so we're looking for people with the skills. So we're looking for communication, we're looking for integrity, we're looking for decision making, we're looking for people who can change what they're doing and how they think of things, when new information comes in, so very dynamically. And each stage we find people will drop out, we'll find people won't pass. Fortunately, you can retake it at certain stages if you wish to do so, but yeah, I'd say about 20% of people get through from application to the final job application.
Yeah, good. Okay, I think you've probably touched on there, but the sorts of skills and qualities that you're perhaps looking for, so the sort of subtext of someone's application.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Andreea mentioned about the code of ethics, which is something that the inspector also touched on as well. They're looking for you to have an ethical approach to everything, because ethics is everything to do with policing, in and out of policing. We've got to follow a code outside of policing as well. When we're not at work, we're still accountable to the public, because police officers need to be seen to be accountable and follow the laws that they do. So ethics is a massive part. And the decision making is a big part as well, but it's important to state they're not looking for you to make the right decisions. They're looking for you to make a decision confidently and justify why you've made it. There is not necessarily a right or wrong. It's like, this is the reason I made the decision with the information that's been given to me, and that's why I've chosen to do this. And if you can justify that, that's what they're looking for, confident decision makers. Because a lot of the incidents we deal with, whether it be long-term investigations or dynamic incidents happening, a fight in the street or anything like that, the situation will change over time, whether that be quickly or slowly. And you've got to be able to adapt how you deal with it when those changes come in.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. No, well answered. Going to move the conversation on now. Then we're going to start taking your questions. I know there's a lot flowing in already, so thanks for submitting those. We will try and get through as many as we possibly can. Just want to ask you then, what level of demand is there for police officers now and in the future? So, Andy, is recruitment high on the agenda at the moment?
Yeah, massively on the moment. And people will be aware that obviously Boris Johnson has pushed forward about recruiting 200,000 police officers by the end of next year. I mean, all that will do, though, is really that will fill up the gap of the police officers we weren't able to recruit over the previous 2 years. So all that's going to do is bring us up to the level we should have been at the beginning of this year. There is always a demand for police officers, because there's always a turnover, and police officers always retire or go on to other jobs and things along those lines. And the good thing about policing is that it's a consistent career. It's a very secure job. So, we always need police officers. We'll always need more, and we'll always need to cater for those. So the demand is as high as ever. It's particularly high now, but it will remain high.
Okay, that's always promising, and it's good to hear. David, what are the developing trends within policing at the moment? So where do you see there being more demand, or what sort of specialisms do you think the police service will require more of in the future?
There's several areas. We've got a national shortage of detectives at the moment. So that is a big push. We're desperate for more investigators and people that want to be detectives. And I think one of the biggest threat areas we're facing is cyber issues. So anything online crime and all that sort of thing. So we definitely need more specialists, investigators for online crime, and that's something we are struggling with at the moment. But the demand will always be there. It's not getting any easier out there, and those 20,000 officers are they'll get swallowed up really quickly by the forces, and we'll need more and more. So the demand is high.
Yeah. Okay. Andreea, where we're based, so we're based just north of London, Hertfordshire. Why did you choose Hertfordshire rather than the Metropolitan Police?
Well, to be honest with you, I had 2 tries for the police. One of them was for the Met Police. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went to see how it goes. I did enjoy the recruitment process. However, something didn't feel right. Like, I just chose London because that's where I lived. However, I had no idea about the focus of this force, what it deals with. It was simply based on my location. But when I decided to continue applying, I started to do some more research and document just a little bit more. And yeah, I chose Hertfordshire because, I don't know, just looking at the website, the positive recruitment team, that kind of appealed to me. So I did get some support, which yeah, I can never thank enough for. And yeah, I don't regret it, to be honest with you. I like the family, everything. Yeah.
No, it's good. You feel like you're very well looked after. Andy, I'm sure there must be some friendly competition between yourselves and some of the other local forces, I suppose, particularly the metropolitan one. There must be a lot of people, as with other industries in Hertfordshire, where they're drawn into London. But what is it that Hertfordshire, do you think, has to offer that people watching this at the moment and residents and students in Hertfordshire should be really mindful of?
Okay, so there's so many good things about Hertfordshire. So the good thing about Hertfordshire is the size of the force and the county. We really are quite a friendly force. Everybody knows someone else, you know someone else. It's very caring, very supportive. You've got a lot of friendship and mutual support and respect there between teams, between departments, between individuals. It's very, very good. And one of the things that a lot of people will be looking at when they're leaving university, for example, is the starting pay, and they'll notice that I think you get paid an extra £4,000 if you go to the Met per year because they have something called London Waiting. Now, we've had a couple of officers in the past that have been tempted to go to the Metropolitan Police for that extra money, but they go there and they very quickly realise that although they're getting paid an extra £4,000, it costs more than that in costs, travel, and other expenses working there, and they're actually worse off. So although that that initial improvement in initial pay looks good, it actually works out worse in the end. So those people ended up coming back to us. The other good thing about Hertfordshire is that we're a massively varied county. So you've got very rural sort of counties up to the north of Hertfordshire, where you've got villages miles apart from each other, a lot of rural crime and heritage crime. You've got a lot of crossover areas. So I work for Hemel and St Albans, so that's you've got your cities there, but you've also got your farmsteads and stuff along those lines. And then you've got places like Watford, which is like a metropolis with nightclubs, a massive high street and retail area and stuff along those lines, and a very diverse cultural background as well. So there is so much variety within Hertfordshire itself, but also because where the county is situated, we get a lot of criminals travelling through Hertfordshire from London and to other parts of the country. We have a vast array of motorways and networks through Hertfordshire for travel. So we end up dealing with a lot of national crime in Hertfordshire because they travel through us quite regularly. So there's an awful lot to say for Hertfordshire.
Yeah, no, very good. And fortunately enough ponds for you to wade through and try and find some extinct newts in as well.
Certainly. Yeah.
Which is always good. Okay, well, I'm going to hand over to the audience really, and the questions that have been submitted. There's quite a few coming already. There's some real belters in here as well. So I'm just going to ask these verbatim if they've come in. Do keep your questions coming in. There will come a point where we possibly won't get them all in. If there's any that are a little bit similar, we'll try and group them together. So hopefully we will either indirectly try and answer all these questions. Andy, I'm going to ask you this one first of all. Question that's come in is, hello, I'm wondering how hard is it to get onto the police apprenticeship and what is the best way to get onto it?
Okay, so the apprenticeship is for the one that people who don't have degrees. So it's really simple to start the process. You literally go to our website and there's a little yellow box where you register your interest. You provide your name and your email address. They'll then send you the application form. And then, as Andreea was saying, you take as long as you want or need over that application form and send it in. At that point, you have started the process of being on the apprenticeship. Obviously, every stage is assessed, so your application will get looked at to see what it's like. After the application, you'll then go through a series of checks just to make sure you're eligible to join the police, because there's certain nationality requirements and other such things. And then you'll get invited to the online assessment centre, which is the situation judgment tests and the writing test and the briefing tests. So it's easy to get onto, but as soon as you're on it, you obviously have to go through those processes before you then start the learning at the police force and the university.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, David. Question for you: how much time does a detective spend in the field versus at a desk?
It depends what department you're on. So on my department, we're out in the field a lot because we're doing surveillance. If you're a CID officer, you are at your desk a bit because you're obviously investigating the crime, but then you're also out at crime scenes, in custody, interviewing prisoners, also interviewing victims and witnesses. So it's all really varied. Undoubtedly, being a detective, there is a bit more desk work than perhaps our uniformed colleagues, but not that much more.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Andreea, how can you get experience in policing when you're still in college? So presumably not to take the law into your own hands would be the first lesson, but if you worked in a
Don't
school,
arrest people on the streets.
experiences
Don't stop people for speeding. Sorry. So how to get more experience when you're in college?
Yeah, what sort of experiences could people go out and get that might be, look good on an application? Anything they could be doing to volunteer that would help gain some experience in this field?
Well, I'm gonna talk to you a bit of my application. To be honest, none of my experience, like I said, has been in policing. Just normal situation, day-to-day situations can get you through that recruitment process. So what these people are trying to see is how you think and how you use your qualities, not necessarily to, I don't know, to go into a fire and save someone. That's not it. So it's not that, but you know, simple tasks that you do every day. It's how you put them and how you sell yourself, maybe. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of commercial. It sounds commercial, but you know, it's about showing what you're capable of. Okay, you don't have as much life experience, but have you got those qualities and what you can build on? Can you become that person? So that's my opinion.
Yeah. What do you think, Andy? I mean, obviously, if it's your first job you're applying for after leaving school, you're naturally not going to have that many experiences to rely on compared to someone who's been working for a number of years. But are there any commonalities? Are there things that some of your best applicants who have left school have in common that they've been able to share and get across through an application?
I think confidence is a good one. So you need to have a certain level of confidence. But I think it's important in relation to getting skills beforehand. You could do things like ride-alongs where you come out for a day with the police back before COVID happened, so that you can't really do that anymore. So there is that option. But in reality, what we're looking for when you join the police is people of all skills and stuff, because you'll be working on a team and there'll be different people who have strengths and weaknesses. And where someone might not have certain skills, someone else may come in. For example, like Andreea will have the ability to speak more than one language, which may come in handy for a victim that someone else might be able to deal with. And so for example, I did a lot of bar work when I was going through college and stuff along those lines. And the ability that I learned through being bar worker about speaking to drunk, potentially volatile people is something that has really seen me well through policing. It means that I've been able to bring down situations, stop fights, get through to drunk victims of crime and stuff like that, because I've had that experience of dealing with drunk people in bar work. So it's quite wide and varied, the skills that you will bring to policing, and you'll be quite surprised at what skills are transferable into this role, because it's so varied in itself.
Okay, thank you. Good answer. David, is it possible to switch from a detective position to a specialised police unit, such as the K9 unit?
Yeah, I think it is. It's not very often it happens, but it's the beauty of the police. You can laterally move pretty much wherever you want to go. So yeah, I've known dog handlers that have become firearms officers and detectives that have become community officers. The world's your oyster, really. You can move wherever you want.
What's the most unusual transfer that you've heard of? Can you think of any instance where someone's gone from something almost totally unrelated?
Probably not really. Nothing that really stands out in my mind. Not really, no, because I mean, most of the moves there are really good reasons behind them, and all the units are good. So there's nothing that really stands out. But it is unusual for detectives, once you become detectives, to then go back to uniform. It doesn't often happen.
Yeah. Okay. Andy, a couple of questions rolled into one here. So does having a degree help in any way? You kind of covered there's two different routes on there, but if someone has got a degree, or they really want to go to university, and then they want to think about policing a little bit later, are there any particular degrees that might be more relevant than others?
Okay, so we get asked this question a lot. We've had one of our recent applications has got a degree in dance. It doesn't matter what degree you have. Just as long as you have a degree, that's what makes you eligible to go onto that degree holders program. Obviously, if it is something in services and stuff like that that's relevant, that you're going to find the resulting training in that a little bit more similar, relative. You're going to find a lot of similarities in what you've already studied. But in short, it doesn't matter what degree you have, because we recognise what we're trying to do is we need to recognise that people bring all sorts of skills to policing, and we need people from a variety of educational backgrounds coming into policing. So it doesn't matter what degree you have, as long as you have a degree. And obviously the benefit of that is that you only spend 2 years training rather than 3 years you would on the apprenticeship.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a kind of a follow-up question here, which is, I'm thinking of studying criminology in university, then joining the police force. Would this benefit me in any way, or should I just get the degree in policing through the apprenticeship program?
Right, I've got to be careful here because I don't want to put people off education. So on one hand, it would benefit you, because if you did criminology and then joined policing, you would have the inside scoop basically on a lot of stuff that you're going to get trained on in policing. You'll find the training a lot easier and stuff along those lines. However, a degree is a degree as far as we're concerned. If you want a degree, it's just as easy to join as the apprenticeship and earn it in policing. You'll end up with a degree at the end of it. It'll be a degree in policing rather than a degree in criminology. So on one hand, it will make the training easier, but it doesn't give you an advantage per se. If what you want at the end of it is a degree, I would say just go straight into policing and get that policing degree, because you'll get it paid for.
Yeah, no, okay, all right. Good question that's come in here. I'm going to ask David this one, because perhaps it's most pertinent to his role at the moment. What's it like going on a mission to catch criminals? So I guess in that build-up, when you know you're on a big operation and you know that you've been preparing something for weeks and possibly months, and then you're getting to the point where this is kind of D-Day. What's it like? How can you describe those feelings?
Yeah, it's exciting. Lots of anticipation. Particularly in my role, we're taking people out with, multi kilos of Class A or firearms. So it's a serious business. So if it's something that I've authorised, there will be a lot of plan, a lot of decision making, a lot of accountability as well. So yeah, nerves and just making sure everything goes as safe as it can. But I think the overall sort of the riding emotion is excitement and hope you've made the right call and they've got the commodity on them that you think they do.
Yeah, no, okay. Andy, can you think of any examples of any big operations you were involved in?
I have so many, and what I can say, in 18.5 years, it doesn't change. At that moment in time where you know that you're going to get the bad guy and stuff along those lines, or especially if it's someone you've been working on for a long time or someone who's done something particularly horrendous, that feeling of having made a difference, of doing something well and stuff like that is very, very important. And I know in policing, a lot of people take the mickey out about the paperwork aspects, and I'm sure the inspector will sort of back me up on this, but that rush of getting the person arrested is second only to seeing them charged in court. And so that initial rush of getting someone arrested, that's brilliant. That is a huge rush, and it makes you feel really fantastic and that you made a difference. But then you have to be really sort of mindful of the paperwork. You've got to do it properly, and you've got to do it to a high standard to ensure that there is no excuse for that person to not face justice in court. And when you've put all that evidence together and provided it in such a good format and so well investigated and thoroughly done, that person gets sentenced and gets a decent sentence in court, that feeling is absolutely amazing as well. But there is the flip side as well. You do get the opportunity to save lives in this job, both indirectly and directly. And saving lives is something else as well. That's an amazing feeling in itself.
Mm-hmm. Sure. It's about the recruitment process. Is there a height requirement, and what is the fitness requirement?
Right, so there is no height requirement at all. There used to be a long time ago, but they got rid of that. So there's no height requirement at all. Now the fitness, as Andrea said, it involves a bleep test where you're running back and forth to it. Now, Gareth, I hope you don't mind me saying this. I sent you an insight document that we send out to all people that are interested in joining. In there is a YouTube link. In there is a YouTube link to the bleep test that you can find on YouTube. And you have to set up your points. I can't remember how far apart they need to be now, but it'll be in the instructions. And basically, you have to make it to each point on the bleep. It is challenging. I can still pass it, and I'm not at my prime, but it is challenging. It's not impossible by any means, because there would be no point for us to make it impossible, because we want people in the job. But it is challenging. It's something you have to work towards. You do have to build up your fitness. So yeah, but no height requirement.
Sure. Okay, and we'll share that page as well. And Andrea, I mean, you reflected on that bleep test, didn't you? And said that you just about passed.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about it, to be honest. I think it was the adrenaline or something. I tried to train, so I trained. It was 0 degrees outside, and I was still running every day. So it was very, very difficult for me in December to train, but I still did it with gyms closed and everything. Trust me, it was a challenge. But yeah, I'm still doing it. It's not impossible, just like Andy said, but it takes a bit of preparation. But it's going to be fine. If they really want it, we'll pass it.
Yeah, and you said it's made a positive difference on your lifestyle as well, haven't you? So yeah, definitely. This one I'm going to ask to Andy as well. I want to go into forensic investigation. Can I do this through the police? And I guess there must be a whole load of kind of related careers with professions that you have to work quite closely with as a police service.
Right, so the honest answer is, if you want to become just strictly a forensic officer, what we call a scenes of crimes officer, that is police staff rather than a police officer. So that is, they have a warrant card and stuff, but they don't have powers of arrest. They're not a police constable, but they are part of the police service. They are part of Hertfordshire Constabulary. However, that being said, there are detective roles available where you'll be working very closely with your forensic investigators and things along those lines. And also, there is certain departments within, like traffic, who deal with car accidents and stuff like that, who deal with a particular type of forensics on the roadside, where they make sure scenes are preserved and they can measure how quickly vehicles are traveling and things like that. So there's lots of different ways of getting into forensics, but if what you want to do is solely forensic work, scenes of crime, you'd be best off applying as a member of police staff as a forensic officer rather than as a police constable.
Okay, and could you explain about some of the, perhaps this, I don't know if they're still called civilian roles, but some of those roles with the police requires within that family that perhaps aren't specifically police, so that's just a recruitment?
Yeah, of course. They're vital to what we do. So, like I said, we have scenes of crimes officers. That we have officers on the front desk, so our inquiry officers, and the inspector we actually as well. We have civilian investigators, so they're people who work alongside detective constables and detectives, but are themselves not police officers, but still do the same work. And even though they are, for want of a better term, civilian roles, there are certain rights that are given to them when they're doing things like searching houses and doing warrants above and beyond what a normal civilian would have. So yeah, and this is a lot of obviously civilian roles at headquarters. So our call takers for emergency calls are generally civilians as well. And basically, they're the people in the background that make it all work, that allow us to work on the front line.
Sure. Okay. A question about the training. So I'm going to ask Andrea this one. Where do you stay during the training? Do you stay in your own home, or do they provide you with accommodation?
Well, actually, it's a mixed thing, because since the COVID, we kind of stay at home. We do remote learning for like 2 or 3 days a week. But other than that, we just travel to Wellwyn Garden City at the headquarters. So no, there's no accommodation. We need to travel.
Yeah. And do you know, is that the same across other forces?
So it is. There are varieties available. So normally we would be training our student officers at Letchworth and Stevenage, as well as at Wellwyn Garden City. Letchworth and Stevenage are our two massive stations. where we do a lot of our training, and Welwyn Garden City, which is our headquarters. It used to be that people, when I joined 18.5 years ago, I used to have to go to Ryton in Coventry, and I used to have to travel there, stay there Monday to Friday, travel home at the weekends, and it was a lot of effort. But a lot of our training's now done in-house, so most people who join live close enough to go home every day. However, if people are joining from further afield, then accommodations can be made if they can't travel to and from. So, and again, that's something my team and I can deal with if they live further afield.
Sure. Okay, thank you. The question was specifically for David. How do you actually get into becoming an investigator or detective? Do you do the same training as you would going into the police? And how long does it take to become a detective or investigator? So the question really that once you decide that you're going to become a detective and you get accepted on there, is there a lot of additional training you do on the job?
So I can only talk from my own experience, because I came in as a PC and then became a DC. But to become a DC, you have to join what's called the Trainee Investigator Programme. You have to do your National Investigators Exam, which is an exam in relation to law and procedure and crime. And then once you've passed that exam, there are various training courses you have to do. A detective training course, and there's various suspect interviewing courses and victim and witness interview courses as well. And then you also have to do a portfolio where you prove your competence as a detective. But then once all that's done, you get what's called a PIP2 accreditation, where you are an accredited investigator. So that is the process to become a detective.
Okay, and then I mean presumably that's also the same for different areas or different specialisms. So there's lots of learning on the job, which is quite formal and accredited in some cases.
Yeah, there's the detective accreditations. There's if you want to get into intelligence, there's an intelligence accreditation you can get as well. Pretty much everywhere you go within the police, there are training courses and specialisms, and you know that it really depends on the role you have.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Is police cadets still open for new applications, as it's been suspended for new applications for ages? And then another question similar: do you think it's more beneficial to join as special constables? I mean, traditionally, 20 years ago, that's often what people were advised to do, wasn't it? So, from Andy, specials and police cadets.
Okay, so cadets, we are still welcoming applications to the cadets. Just at the moment, a lot of the work that they do is on hold because of COVID. So you can still apply to do cadets. As for specials, so we get an awful lot of our specials after they've done a couple of years as a special join to become regular police constables. A lot of the people who join us as specials is purely because they want to, they've got a job that they're enjoying alongside policing, and they want to give a little bit in policing world as well as keep their main job. There are benefits to being a special constable before you join as a regular. It gives you an opportunity to see what it's really like, test the waters, as it were, if you're still unsure if it's the career for you, because leaving as a special and stuff is a lot simpler, and you know, you can just decide, okay, maybe it's not for me, and give up that career in being a special whilst having a job on the side. The other thing, though, if you are genuinely invested in joining policing as a career, then you're going to get just as much out of joining as a regular police constable, if not more, than you would as a special. So my advice would be, if you're not sure whether it's for you, by all means join as a special first and test the waters. But if your heart is set on policing, just go for it. Go for the full role.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'm going to wrap up with a couple more questions now. There's so many that have come in, but not been able to answer all of them. But we'll try and get through the sort of the main themes here. So this probably just needs a quick answer, Andy. Are there any specific requirements to get, such as passing your driving test?
Right. Okay. So the important thing about a driving test, it used to be that you had to have a driving license to join the police. Because obviously there's no lessons going on at the moment because of COVID and stuff like that, the legislation has changed. So you don't have to have a driving license to join the police, but you must have your driving license at the end of your first 2 years. So that by the time you're likely to be out and about on patrol on your own, you know, when you finish your training and stuff, you need to have that driving license. So you don't have to have it to join.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was thinking about our audience watching at the moment. Driving lessons can be quite expensive anyway. So once
Yeah.
you've been on the training program for a couple of years, that's probably slightly more manageable. David, this is a really good technical question for you. Is there a major difference between CID and ERSU, which I know is Eastern Region Special Operations Unit? So that's a really good question that's come in.
Yeah, so CID deal with, I suppose, serious and complex crime, normally things like robberies, GBHs, serious assaults. ERSU is a regional organised crime unit, and we have a lot more specialist capabilities, so we can actually investigate organised crime groups, and we can implement a lot of covert tactics such as surveillance and lots of other sneaky beaky tactics that I can't really talk about here. So we have a lot more specialisms, and we can deal with a lot more dangerous criminals. And CID is a very reactive role, so the crime's happened and CID turn up, whereas we are following them and watching them do it. So that will say that's the main difference.
Yep. Okay. I really like this question. Andreea, I'm going to ask this one to you first of all. What is the most accurate police show someone could watch if they were interested in a job in policing for, quotes, research?
Okay, I watched Lines of Duty. So that's what I watched. Yeah, maybe if you want to have a little fun, just watch Thin Blue Line. With Rowan Atkinson. That would definitely get you into the policing. But yeah, Lines of Duty, I found it maybe not 100% accurate, but one of the best I've watched.
Okay, and I mean, Andy, I mean, back in the day, it was The Bill, which probably you can find on UK Gold now. But what about for you? What's the best actual reflection of what it's actually like in the police?
Jill, it is difficult because they've got to make every story exciting at every stage, and in reality, it's not. Vera is a good one. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that. That's about a detective chief inspector called Vera. That's more realistic. It's got a good idea of what the team dynamics are like in policing, and the reality is not everything is straightforward and goes well. So that's a good one. That's one I'd recommend. But you know, Thin Blue Line, I know it's a comedy, some of that's true to life as well.
Yeah. Okay. And David, for you, or let me flip the question, David. Are there any police shows that you watch and you think, you know what, this is so far from the truth and what my actual job actually looks like? It might be worth pointing them out, though.
To be honest with you, all the fictional ones are like that. I think the best one, I think, to give you a flavour what it's really like is the 24 Hours in Police Custody. I know that's a reality show, but of all the reality shows, that is what real life is like, and our unit was on it on one of the most recent episodes. So it really is, you know, what we do because we was on it. So yeah, that is the one for me. But as far as like the fictional ones, that they're all pretty not very realistic. They're all quite dramatised.
Yeah, no, okay. Right, we're just going to finish up with the last couple of questions. Now, as I do this, I'm just going to put this slide up, which will give you the details of the websites that Andy's referred to already. So the Herts Police, the recruitment site. So let me just leave this screen up for a couple of minutes. Maybe take a screenshot of it if you're watching this at the moment. Then you can go back and you can get those sites as you're looking at them. Andy, are you allowed ear, eye, or eyebrow piercing in the police? And can I extend that to tattoos as well? Because I know that's a question that people will quite often ask.
Okay. Interesting question, because it's something that's very close to my heart. I'm a goth and metalhead outside of work. So I used to have really long hair, and I have facial piercing, and I have tattoos. So the short answer is facial piercings, if you're frontline operational, it's purely for safety reasons. So I don't wear this if I'm out on the street fighting with people, because the last thing I want to do is it getting pulled and ripped through my lips. Same things if I was to get punched in the face, that's taking teeth out. So generally with your stuff, you're allowed a simple stud in your ears. You're allowed ring or studying your nose if it's for faith purposes. So people from Indian backgrounds, for example, things like that. So if you've got it for religious reasons, then you can wear it. Normally it's to your ears. If you've got tongue, face, eyebrow, anything along those lines, then you'd be obliged to take them out before you get on patrol anyway. You'd be expected to, but it's actually the most sensible thing to do as well. So it's just purely for safety reasons and being practical and stuff. In relation to tattoos, the screen that Gareth put up now, that one about apply work for some positive action at the bottom, one of the PowerPoint presentations I've put down there is specifically about tattoos, because that's something that's quite close to my heart. It used to be we were very, very strict on tattoos, like no tattoos anywhere visible or anything along these lines, but then they realised that people leaving the armed forces had a lot of transferable skills that were relevant in policing, and obviously a lot of them had tattoos at a regiment or things like that on them. So you're allowed them on visible areas as long as they're not offensive, and that's that guide that you can get to from that will explain to you what offensive is and things along those lines, and you know what you can and can't do. For example, I've got the keep doing the wrong one because it's reflected in the screen, but this one I've had since before I joined, perfectly acceptable and fine to have in the police service. There are rules, obviously. You can't have anything racist, gang related, nudity, anything like that, because obviously you may be dealing with incidents like a rape case, for example, or something like that, where that will be inappropriate to have. So the best thing to do is, if you have tattoos, is declare them, measure them, photograph them, and send them in with your application form.
Yeah, great. Okay, so look, just some concluding comments for you. There's so many questions that have come in, and if it's okay, what I might do, the questions that we haven't been able to answer, I might send them over to you and see if we can get some perhaps written responses, and then we can put them on our HOP website. But just to close, David, if you could go back and talk to yourself as a 16-year-old thinking about joining the police, what are the key things that you would want your 16-year-old self to know about a career in policing?
Well, when I was 16, it's all I wanted to do, and it took me a few attempts to get in, and it was quite disheartening failing. So I think I would go back and tell my 16-year-old self to just not give up. And it is the career I wanted it to be, and it was everything I hoped it to be. And it isn't easy to get in, but that shouldn't be a reason not to apply. So if it is something you want to do, just don't give up. Keep trying, keep learning, keep looking for experiences to better yourself, and just don't give up, and eventually you'll succeed.
Thank you. And Andreea, just closing comment from you. What would you say to inspire anyone watching this at the moment who's thinking, is the police for me or is it not? What would you want them to go away from this session knowing from your perspective?
Well, obviously, since they're here, they're thinking about a career in the policing. I would say just try, give it a try, do some research, go through the process, and you will know if it's for you or not. Just going through that process, just opening that application, you will know right away if it's for you or not. That's my opinion. Good luck, everyone, anyway.
Thank you. And then Andy, final word from you as someone who will be directly or indirectly looking through a lot of the applications that will come in. What's perhaps one bit of advice you would give anyone specifically about their application process?
There's two main pieces. First thing is take your time. Like Andreea said, there is no rush. A quality application will get you a lot further than a quick application. And secondly, my team and I are here specifically to help you through the application, the recruitment process, and into your first days of policing with us. If you have any issues at any point, go to those guides that Gareth just give you the links to, but don't hesitate to contact me or my team directly, and we will help you every step of the way. There are no silly questions, there's no stupid questions, and nothing we haven't heard before, but the support is there for you.
Sure, thank you. So look, we've gone over the hour that we usually allot for this. There's so many more questions that are coming. So firstly, thank you for all of you that are watching this live at the moment. Thank you for giving up your time to come in and take part in this session and to interact. And we really hope that the information that you've been given by Andy, by Andreea and David has been really, really useful for you, and it will help you make your decisions about what's the next best steps for you. The screen that you can see at the moment, if you would take a picture of that QR code in the top left corner. That will take you to the page on the HOP website, which we very much encourage you to go and have a look at, not just with regards to careers in policing, but careers in Hertfordshire as a whole. So this will take you to our landing page, where probably from some point tomorrow, you'll be able to watch this video back. You can obviously stop it and slow it down and take notes and share it with your friends as well. You'll also see on there some of our other social media accounts as well, which we hope you will follow and we hope you will find useful as well. So before I go, just great deal of thanks to our panelists today, so Andy, to Andrea, and to David for giving up their time, not just today but in yesterday in preparation for this, and sharing some of their experiences and knowledge with you. And I'm sure on behalf of them, they look forward to hearing from more from you guys during that application process and in the future. So thanks very much to all of you. Hope it's been useful, and take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Best of luck.